All right, so welcome everyone. I'm gonna skip the good morning thing, Jen. I see that you think that's funny. Welcome everyone to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. I am your host, Adam Smith, with Just the Tips Coaching, and with us most of the time, unless she's kicking me off the show, I guess she's probably here more than I am, is our marketing director and another one of our sales coaches, Jen Waybower. Good morning, Jen. All right, now I can say that to you because it is morning where you are, correct?
That's true.
Okay, so you can say good morning.
Yes.
Perfect.
We'll let it slide.
We'll let it slide. All right, and we have a guest for you guys that is a repeat guest on our show. We don't get to do that all that often, have sequels or sagas or repeats or three-peats, whatever the case may be. Just like, I guess, the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't. But nonetheless, making his second appearance on the How I Met Your Mortgage podcast is Josh Gilbert. Good morning, Josh.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. And you must be pretty stoked about the outcome yesterday. You had mentioned that you grew up in an area right near where Tom Brady grew up, and that's kind of a big deal in your home neck of the woods.
Yeah. I grew up in Burlingame, California, which is right outside of San Francisco. And Tom Brady's from the town right next to it called San Mateo. He went to Sarah High School, where a lot of my friends went. He holds every single record there. Not just for football, for track, and I think swimming. I mean, he's just a freak athlete. So, I know people have their opinions on him, but it was cool to see kind of like a hometown boy win it.
Again.
Yeah, again.
Right. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not surprised that all of the high school records, and I don't know much about his career, but I'm sure that that's true of a lot of college stats as well. And I would be willing to bet that Tom was a pretty good student to boot. He seems like a smart guy. He certainly has worked at improving and perfecting his craft. That's something that's very important in every business walk of life. We got to keep learning. We got to keep improving. And he treats it like a job. He wants to do better. He wants to be more successful. We obviously see a lot of professional athletes in every walk, NFL included, that don't invest that mental aspect of it. They don't, work on their craft. A lot of them either coast or, even deteriorate as time goes on. But man, he's had a 20-year NFL career and seems to be getting better still.
Yeah. I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, we talked a little bit about it before the show, and, like I said, people have their opinions on him. And I guess I'm kind of biased, because I'm close to where I grew up. But to me, I just like to see greatness. There is no denying that he's unbelievable. I mean, he's not just – you mentioned it before the show, he's definitely, in my opinion, probably the greatest football player of all time. He's for sure, I would say, on the Mount Rushmore of greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah, that was the conversation, right? Can we compare him to the Michael Jordans of the world? And I think we can.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think it's undeniable. And so that's personally what I think of when I kind of hear Tom Brady. I get it. He's, whenever people hated Jordan, you know what I mean? So, people hate LeBron, people hate the greats, and I think that's just part of being as good as you are. But, I just like to see greatness, and he played a great game yesterday. So
he did. It was very systematic. It was very controlled. It was very logical. It was very well managed. He did what Tom Brady does. And we've seen players like that. Peyton Manning did that in his later years. And what these guys have sacrificed in physical prowess as they get older. I think this was like the first NFL season where I was actually older than every NFL player finally. I'm not much older than Tom, but a little bit. What these guys lose in physical prowess year to year, they more than make up for in intelligence and management. And I mean, they really focus on the science of it. the mathematics of it, and it's really impressive to see that there are people out there that can substitute something we naturally lose as time goes on with something to replace it and continue to propel them forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't know. There's probably some people watching that are, screaming "Damn Tom" and everything like that. It's not to say anything. Pat Mahomes is, like we were saying before, he has an incredible future ahead of him. That guy is an absolute monster. Like I think I'm convinced that he's gonna be the next guy. I think he's 25, so when Tom's 43, yeah, I mean, Pat Mahomes, this isn't like the end of him.
Oh, hardly. Yeah, give him a couple decades of experience in that game, and he'll be right there too.
Right.
And he's already got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, we've already seen greatness from this kid. So, yeah, I don't think there's any debating that. And, boy, I see Jen rolling her eyes like we have gotten way the hell off topic of lead generation and business practices.
If you want to talk about the halftime show.
Right.
I don't know that we'll talk about the halftime show. I have decided that I am going to go by the Workday. Right? And this was one guy that goes by the Weekend. That's his name. I'm gonna go by the Workday, just because I thought that was interesting. I think the advertisements, the ads were certainly interesting. Jen, I know you scoured it closely for the findamortgagebroker.com ad. And it was good. I thought it was a significant improvement over last year. Last year they poked the bear when it came to Quicken. Rockets explode, rockets are expensive, those kinds of things. I've watched that video in recent days, and I've watched the video that we put out that we had manipulated from their multi-million-dollar ad spend, and I'm sure we'll do it again this year. In fact, I think I've sent you some content. They'll give them the content, and they'll manipulate the ad for you. So, Sweet. Yeah, they were big on that. Anything in that arena grab your attention, Josh? Would you see in the ad world that was unique to a pandemic year?
I'm the wrong person to talk to about this. So, and I know everyone loves to watch the ads and the halftime show and everything. I grew up kind of a purist, so I'm much more about the game.
Wow. You actually use the commercial breaks to go to the bathroom.
I do. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I use the game to go to the bathroom.
Get some food. Yeah, like occasionally there'll be one that can like slide in, but usually I just like to watch the game. And I know that's really rare, but so.
What about you, Jen? This was a unique year for Super Bowl ads. What grabbed your attention?
I honestly didn't really watch much of it. But Adam, as you know, this is cool. A friend of mine's husband used to do the event design for the NFL. And she posted, it did not do this year because of COVID. They had to lay off a bunch of people, but did talk about, I know there's a lot of criticism of the halftime show, but The Weeknd was on their second list of choices. But he's the first previously homeless performer to ever do the Super Bowl halftime show. And he put up a bunch of his own money.
$7 million.
To make it what he wanted it to be, which I thought was really cool. So... yeah, but the ads that I've seen they didn't really stand up to previous ones. Were there any that stood out to you, Adam?
Well, obviously the Find a Mortgage Broker one stood out to me. I thought that was interesting. There were a couple of other organizations in the mortgage space that I had keyed in on that I thought were unique. I really appreciated the fact that because of the unique state of the world today, that it opened up the door for a lot of companies we'd never see advertised during the Super Bowl get an opportunity to do that. And it's funny, I was watching CNBC this morning, and they covered who ran big Super Bowl ads the first time Brady played in the Super Bowl. And those highlights included VoiceStream, Radio Shack, I think findajob.com was one of them. So yeah, it was really a unique comparison side to side. But I think what all of this does, the business of it, the ability to continue to repeat to and perform year after year, what the advertising looks like, what the audiences look like, on, can really trickle down to where we can grab ideas to help our own business. Now, one of the things we talked about, and I think it may have even been before we went live, was that being the very tip top of that game, Super Bowl champion, that's how it's defined in the NFL, is virtually impossible to do back to back. It's very rare for a team to do that in the history of the NFL 2 years in a row, because it's such a daunting task. It's such a physically brutal escapade that we don't see it. Now, it's funny because in business, whether it's real estate or mortgages or sales coaching or whatever it may be, we're given another opportunity to that because we don't have to take that physical beating year after year. It is actually possible to not only be the Tom Brady of the world, of the real estate world, of the Denver real estate world, of the Shreveport, Louisiana mortgage broker world, whatever it happens to be, to not only to continue to improve and build every year, but by that definition, by your little niche definition, you could be world champ every year.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on how you want to measure world champ in terms of real estate.
Well, your own world, just in Josh's world.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I guess it's like an interesting thing to kind of unpack, if you're the guy or the woman like in your area and you just are consistently in the top sales of your city, then I guess, yeah, you definitely could do that. I guess, yeah. I mean, if you want to put a metaphor on it, the bigger the city, the more the big league you're in. I'm sure it's got to be pretty damn difficult to be the top salesperson in LA or the top salesperson in New York City. You know what I mean? Consistently year after year after year. That's I would argue at that point you're more of an organization than you are an individual.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. But it leads my, still food coma, hungover brain. I think I cooked enough yesterday for about 30 people for really just my wife and I. I think my older son did eventually get up late and eat some of what I had made. But the path that I'm thinking is the end game, right? And we talked about this a bunch with Tom Brady. He's 43 years old. There's got to be an end game. He has obviously solidified his place in history. I have no doubt, knowing that he's clearly a very smart guy, that he knows what the next 5, 10, even 20 years look like for him. How many of us can say that? How many of us have that kind of framework, that kind of structure, that kind of plan laid out? How do I retire from being the greatest real estate agent in my market, the greatest mortgage broker in my market? How do I play that end game where I know what my next 5, 10, 20 years look like?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, it's a really good question. I think, dissecting it right off the top of my head, I think it's a little bit different. When you're something like a football player or you're somebody on a sports team, you're dealing with typically elongated contracts. You're going to be typically with these players for, I would say, probably 2 to 3 years. You probably know. I would imagine that's probably the minimum contract. So you can kind of set out, that time period. I think the difficult thing with real estate and why a lot of people, one, don't succeed, and then once they're in it, either get burnt out or they don't do it for continuously over year to year, is because they don't have planning. Because one thing I tell my clients is that the money really is in investing in real estate and having your money work for you. And I've been lucky where a lot of my clients purchase their first home, keep that home, and then buy another one. So then they end up renting it out, or they end up, having it. So I think that is the long-term way on how to actually retire if you want to work in real estate or mortgages, is actually to invest, because the market can change very, very quickly. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. You know, I work with a lot of buyers, a lot of first-time home buyers. We talked about that on the last podcast, but right now it's a difficult time for buyers. Pretty much anywhere that people are moving to, it's difficult. Not just Denver, but Austin, Texas, Phoenix. You know,
Every urban corridor is having a housing shortage.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you can't, in my opinion, I don't think it's very wise to just count on your commissions, because your commission, I mean, you know, things fall out of closing all the time for various reasons. You don't want to count on it. You have to have your money work for you. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is through real estate, because that's what I do.
Well, there is a lot of logic to not counting the chickens before they hatch. And God, I remember years ago, we actually had a client on the mortgage side who was a real estate agent, and she was using the commission from a future closing as the down payment on her new house, or in part. And the deal didn't close, right? Her deal didn't close.
Yeah, that's
so now I mean, the literally counting your chickens before they hatch in that game. Yeah, a high risk behavior, no question. So I would agree. I think that we can all invest. You know, go download your Robinhood app. You know, go get a good financial planner. You know, diversify, buy stocks, bonds, mutuals, whatever. I think the second one, which is really what you're describing, is real estate. And I do think that that's a monumentally wise investment. I cannot think of a single individual who ever got wealthy without owning real estate. I mean, I just think it's a piece of the puzzle and I'm not expecting to get wealthy, and I don't expect that a lot of our audience or a lot of our clients or, you know, have their sights set on wealthy. I think they'll want to retire in comfort. Sure. Yeah. And I do think that owning real estate is a piece of that puzzle. I mean, even if we just break it down to the, you know, simple family who buys a house, lives in it for 30 years, they watch their kids go, they play with their grandkids, and then there's enough equity built up in that property over time to basically pay for the remainder of their lives. It's kind of a big asset that way. In fact, for those of you that are familiar, that's one of the big pitches with why HomeBot is so successful, and what HomeBot puts out, because the consumer really needs to know about that particular vehicle as an investment and what it's worth. It's likely their biggest one. But I do think that there is a possibility, when done correctly, and I'm hoping I'm on that path. My coach is certainly helping me down that path. And some of our other coaching clients as well, that there is an opportunity, if done right, unique, but done right, to build up your real estate business, to build up your mortgage business, to build up your financial planning business, your insurance business, whatever it is, so that you do eventually have a business that runs without you, where you can step away, and in theory, it eventually runs better without you. When you try to interfere, you're going to muck it all up. But I think that pretty much nails it down. I think those three things are kind of the limit. I don't want to put it quite that way, because I don't want people to think that there are limiting factors. But I think if you're going to play the long game as a real estate agent, as a mortgage lender, as a financial planner, as an insurance agent, those are the three things that are going to enable you to essentially have a comfortable retirement. Investment, diversification, real estate, and actually you can figure out how to build your business so that it runs without you. But yeah, I think that you got to focus on at least two of those three if you want to make it that way.
I would agree. I mean, you know, I speak from an agent's perspective,
right?
And I think we're talking about longevity here. I mean, that sounds like, you know, the big thing. I think there's the planning aspect of it too. But one thing, you know, it's funny because, you know, what 2020 and I think for a lot of us still 2021 is bringing us is we're still questioning a lot of things. We're still like, is it going to get better? When is it going to get better? Are things going to be different? How different? one thing that I realized over the pandemic, and it was really kind of early on, probably kind of in March, is I think there's an aspect, and it's so cliche, but you do need to find some sort of system mentally, whether that be some type of balance, whether that be, because there's one thing to say, okay, just work, work, work. But it's very easy if you just work to get burnt out. And I think that's a big thing with, if we're relating this to athletes too, that's a big thing with them. You know, they work hard, they do their a little bit of off-season training, and then once they're in season, they're just workhorses. But those guys party hard too. And that's the reason why, you know, and not saying you have to go out and party, but it's interesting. I was talking to another agent, and we were talking about, you know, when we both got started, that's all we did. We didn't take time. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't take trips anywhere. We just worked. We worked 7 days a week. At one point, I was doing, you know, 6 open houses a weekend. So 2 a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and following up the whole week. And this was for years. I did this. And one thing that I kind of realized was, because I didn't have any experiences, because I never took time to mentally balance myself or recharge, not only was I burnt out, but the only thing I could actually talk to people about was work. I had no relation to anything outside of work. And I always advocate to young agents, to just people in general, you know, a lot of my friends who are starting businesses, it's cliche, but you do need, for the longevity of your business, but also for just relatability, you need that balance.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I would say that a lot of these guys do that and get that when we're talking about the professional athlete space. I would like to think that a lot of my mortgage colleagues, a lot of your real estate colleagues that have figured out how to systemize and regiment their workload and have become consistent producers in their space have figured that out. I do know of a couple and worry about a couple of close friends, Jen, you're thinking Andrew, who are just doing that workhorse thing like you described, you know, probably 12 plus hours a day, day after day, week after week, month after month. And we certainly do have our concerns for them about burnout. And yeah, I certainly get it. And I think there's a lot of legitimacy to that. I really hope that our audience keys in on that. That, yeah, it's great to work and it's great to be successful, especially when you're talking about something in this space. And it was the, what's the God Made a Realtor, where they mentioned that, you know, realtors wake up unemployed every day. You got to hustle. There's no question. It is a long-term, full-time commitment. And yeah, I would say that a lot different than, you know, punching a clock at Walmart. The odds for people burning out are probably really high. In fact, that may very well contribute to the failure rate in the real estate community. I mean, we know it's really high, and we know what the leading factors are, but I'll bet that's one of them.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I don't know if that's one of the reasons they put down, but I could see it for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Jen? What are you doing to stave off the burnout? Although you've probably got like 30 different gigs that you're working on at any given time.
I am like the worst example of this ever. Let's remember, I did yoga was my thing. Yoga was my escape from work. So what did I do? I signed up for yoga teacher training so that I can turn yoga into work.
Yeah, that way you can get burned out on it. Awesome.
Right.
Okay, and wine.
I like drinking wine, so I start selling wine.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm the worst example.
You turn it all into work. Maybe you should open an animal shelter.
I mean, Raja just popped up over here. That was perfect timing.
Good timing.
I mean, I guess hiking is something I haven't managed to turn into, you know, a side hustle of any sort. Going away to the mountains this weekend. Hoping the internet is crappy. I gotta be honest. I'm really hoping to unplug a little bit, but I'm not very good at it.
It's pretty bad up there.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do that you don't make a job, that you just do for the sake of doing?
No.
Yeah,
It's
not
all
No.
not right now. She figures out how to
Not
take every
currently.
hobby and convert it into a gig.
okay.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah. But I love it. I will say, because my passions became sources of income, I love what I do. I love sales coaching. I love marketing. I love selling wine for what it means. I get discounted wine, so that's nice. And I love the whole yoga world. I'm super involved, and um, yeah, I don't know how people work jobs that they don't love, because I love everything that I do.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. One of my favorite kind of philosophies is I don't know if it's his, but Justin Martin. I used to work for iHomes, or used to be with iHomes Colorado, and he is one of the founders there. And he would always talk about work-life passion. It's hard when you're a business owner to have work-life balance, but work-life passion is kind of what you're talking about. It's something where you don't mind doing it, and it kind of is just woven into the fabric of your life. And you know what I mean? And then it makes things much more enjoyable. You're excited to talk about it with people. You're excited to do it. And so I can agree, yeah, because if you go to a job where you're not into it, it's soul crushing.
Oh, it makes those days feel real long, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds absolutely horrible. Although it does sound like Jen is the epitome of find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. You know, friends are, you work so much, but I love what I do, so it's not a big deal.
You do work a lot. I saw your timesheet for last
I
week.
do work a
Blew
lot.
my mind. It's like, wow, holy cow. And I'm not even paying you for yoga yet.
Right? I'm gonna start teaching yoga at the office. Erica and Mindy, you ready?
That's not funny. That's not funny. Although a good reason to work more from home.
You can avoid Jen's yoga
I can
classes
avoid
in the
Jen's
office.
yoga classes, right? All right, so Josh, tell us. I mean, since you've been on the show, obviously things have developed. They've changed. Not so much the big picture. We're still in the heat of a pandemic. We're, certainly rolling out inoculations, vaccinations. 2022 might look a little more normal, whatever that's going to mean. But things have been a little different in Josh's world. The inventory issue is a big one. You rep a ton of buyers. I mean, you must see people just I've never seen it this difficult to be the buyer. Yeah, and I can't remember what the exact stats are, but here in the Denver metro area, a 6-month inventory, and again, that's a balanced inventory no matter where you guys are, where you live, where you're listening. For the Denver metro area to have that, we need like 30,000 listings, and we've got, probably 6,000 or 7,000 right now, which is the lowest we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you could be around that. I saw some report that said 5,200 last time.
Whoa.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's I'm confident. It's typically in real estate, it's slower during, that November to kind of the New Year time period. So I'm confident it will pick up. But yeah, it's hard for everybody right now. And I try to spin things into a positive because people are moving here and people want to move to desirable areas. You know what I mean? So once you get a place, hold on to it. And a lot of people that are here, I believe, are going to sell because they either want a more affordable, living, or whatever the case may be. I think that's the biggest change that I've seen in real estate. A lot of people, I'm calling it just the great shift. So, being from San Francisco, a lot of people are moving from these big metropolitan areas to secondary cities, which I would consider Denver a secondary city. And then people in the secondary cities are moving to tertiary cities. And you're just seeing this kind of whole shift towards things. But yeah, it's been interesting. It hasn't I wouldn't say it hasn't affected my business negatively, but it's definitely changed it. being from California, I have a lot of clients now who are relocating here. If they're not relocating, they're definitely investing. So just because it's, I think the big markets like New York and Chicago and uh, California are going through a little bit of a hard time when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, and we are here too. I don't want to, sugarcoat it in any way.
Sure.
What has changed in how you're dealing with those buyers? How you're submitting offers? What are, some of the unique maneuvers you've had to make with this ridiculous inventory shortage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, you know, my main thing with coaching any client at any price point is being as transparent and as honest as possible. I don't really believe in sugarcoating things. You got to let them know what the market is and what to expect, especially with a first-time home buyer. And I part of that is understanding, okay, we might have to bid a little higher. Especially right now, everything is going over asking. Everything has an appraisal gap on it. People are waiving inspections. So, but you have to look at the big picture and say, okay, what is your plan? You're going to be in this home for 5 years. You have to look at the equity. You show them the equity, percentages on the returns, and you calculate it with them. So that's a huge thing. I've been pretty lucky that most of my clients are relocating right now. So they're selling their real estate in San Francisco or LA or San Diego, and
coming here with a ton of cash.
Yeah, and so I'm very lucky in that way. But even still at the higher price points, it can be a challenge. I would like to have a better way of saying this, but I don't really think there is a fancy maneuver. Coming in with full cash is always going to be the winner. Quicker closes. But I think right now, the thing is if you have time and you're in a lease that's 6 months, utilize that time. That's a luxury, I would say.
Agreed.
And just plan things out. If you're not in that, just understand that it's competitive for everybody at every single price point, and talk to your agent about, do we go in lower and then offer more with an appraisal gap? Are we comfortable waiving an inspection? Can we do a quicker close? Those are really the maneuvers, but I wouldn't say they're unique.
It's funny because that makes me think we've obviously spent a lot of time coaching mortgage clients from the financial perspective of what it looks like to go from being a renter to an owner. And for those of you listening, hypothetically, your lease ends at the end of February. And you certainly don't want to double up on your housing expense. So you would structure it so you didn't have a housing payment due until March. Well, that means you probably could have closed on a house in early January. And you're probably under contract for 30 days, rolling us back to early December. And it may have taken you 30 days to find a house, rolling us back to early November, is when you would have normally started that process in order to be in a home when your lease is up without having to double up on your housing expense at the end of this month. Now, boy, we really need to shift that schedule because it could take months and months to find a house.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of my clients right now, there's a few that are a little bit more pressing, but I usually start talking to clients, or they approach me. I would say probably a year out is the average. That's pretty common. Most of my clients are kind of in the millennial generation, so they've started kind of asking me questions. But we start having that conversation a year before. 6 months before, we probably start looking.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be the window these days is 6 months.
Yeah, and now it's for the sake of just getting into a place. It might take you a few months, but really I've always done that even when it wasn't this crazy, just to get people kind of used to the rhythm of looking at a house. I find it very rare that people do the HGTV thing and look at 3 homes and choose one of the 3. So.
True story. All right. Jen, yes, I see the queue. I know we're way over time already, but yeah, you're just going to have to deal with it because Josh and I could do this forever.
Yeah.
And on that note, Jen, let's get Josh up for a three-peat because we do have a good time when we're chatting about this kind of stuff. And Josh, I know people could go listen to or find the video for the past episode, but in the interest of saving our audience some headache, give them some details on how they can reach you.
Sure. The best way to reach me is all my information is on my website, which is thegilbertcompany.com. If you want to search me on Instagram, it's just at the Gilbert Company. I don't know if anyone caught the last podcast. I'm not great with social media, but I do check my DMs and my emails on there and my phone number. So
I'm not looking at the screen here, but I'll bet Jen is nodding. We talk about that. Yes, Josh sucks at his social media. Don't post on Josh's Facebook page, people. He's never going to see
I'm really trying to get better, but I do check the DMs and I do check my email and my text.
All right. And Jen, in the usual self-serving interest, we've got our text code. You can text TIPS to 63566. And what kind of content are they going to get back if they do that?
They will get the links to the podcast on Apple and on Spotify. They can order a copy of your book. They can book a free hour of coaching with us. They can learn more about the Mile High Mastermind, fingers crossed for September, and just general links to our website, our weekly little tip.
Oh, yeah, the weekly little tip.
Yeah. Reach out to me if you want to be booked on the show. We are booking into March of 2022 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll have to keep going then. Well, Josh, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I know it's tough to take an hour out of your day for all the prep work and all the clothes work and to let us, bend your ear for a half hour or so. So, again, thank you for doing that. I know it's a big commitment for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me back. It's a great time.
All right. Well, and for those of you watching live or in syndication or listening to the podcast, thank you for tuning in. We'll have another new episode for you next week. And hopefully you guys have a great 7 days between now and then. We'll talk to you later.